Real questions, real answers for real life. Come on in and pull up a chair. You're at 1850 Main Street with Michael DelGiorno and David Zanotti.
What does Christian nationalism have to do with Speaker of the House Mike Johnson?
When we were visiting last time, we were talking about, all right, so what is it about this guy, Johnson, they don't like? Is it because he's a Republican? Is he a conservative? Is he a Christian? Is it all of the above? How much of this, David, and this really kind of sets the tone for where I really want us to talk, which is how this comes back to you and me and our children and our children's children and our future and our time now and all time. How much of this is to send a message, a clear message, not to destroy a guy they don't know, Speaker Johnson, but to make sure they send a clear message to all the others thinking about being conservative or Christian to run, or silencing those who may have similar worldviews already in office to, not go there?
President Biden ran an entire presidential campaign and has never stopped talking about the fact that he is in politics now at this stage of his life to save the soul of our nation. Now, how does that work? I mean, if anyone would qualify.
That's compulsion.
Yeah, if anyone would qualify as a Christian nationalist, it's Joe Biden. He stood up and said he's literally existing as a politician to save the soul of the nation. No politician can do that, but that's what Joe Biden says his entire goal in life is right now. Another question is, where do we come up with the idea that nations have souls? Individuals have souls. There's nothing in any of the Holy Writ that says there's the soul of a nation. I mean, that's what are we talking about here, Joe? I mean,
well, it's great poetry. It's just bad
it is,
civics and history. That's all.
Yeah, and of course, it elevates you to a place where who could actually stand in judgment of you. I mean, so if anyone would qualify as a Christian nationalist, it would be Joe Biden. But let's get to where they're trying to go. A few years ago, the only thing you ever heard was that, well, you Christians want a theocracy. Well, the truth caught up with them about that, because when you read Thomas Paine and you read Common Sense, you recognize when you look at the founders that the last thing they wanted was any form of a monarchy. That was what they were actually fighting against.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So you're not going to come up with...
You laugh, David. They got away with that for decades at the university level.
They did, and you Christians all want a theocracy. You want to have a religious government that is commanded based upon... Now, the Muslim community wants precisely that. They want Sharia law to be, in fact, the law of every nation that they conquer or govern. Now, this would be the equivalent of saying that what we want is we want to bring the old Hebrew Republic back, dust that out, and make it the way that the United States government is constructed. Well, that is absurd. Remember that thing about Old Covenant and New Covenants? Christians have a great honor for the Mosaic Law and the Hebrew Republic and Hebrew history and for the nation of Israel and the people of Israel. We are all sort of in the same family. There's a connection there that an honest student of Scripture has to see and understand. But the last thing that America is about a theocracy. That was a time and a place in a covenant that is now expired. It's gone by. Now I want to be careful when I use words about that, because I don't want to say for a second that the relationship with God and Israel, look, that's between God and Israel and the Holy Scriptures to define. We're not talking about that part. We're not talking about replacement theology or any of the backwater arguments that people get into about this. No, what we're talking about is the word theocracy. There is nothing in the American model which was established by people who believed in a Judeo-Christian worldview that sought to establish a theocracy. The very thought of that is absurd. But that being said, there was a moral conscience to these people. And they did recognize the fact that there are things called self-evident truths, and that these truths are not all the same, and that there is, in fact, a revelation that there is a God. He has spoken. He is not silent. And that to the degree that we exercise our conscience and will to govern ourselves according to his principles, we'll be better off.
We've often talked about, a lot, I think, at least when I'm reading, I think a lot of their perspective was it's impossible without a moral people. That's John Quincy Adams' exact quote, because that mechanism of self-governance. And if you don't have something that will govern you, then a self-governed, centered form of government just can't work. But, one of the things I always wanted to ask you was the self-evident part.
Mm-hmm.
Because I always feel like, that part is left legally very vague in a sense, where if they had been more specific, because sometimes things come up and then we go, well, that would have fall under self-evident. Did they fail to envision a country that didn't believe in self-evident truths anymore?
Wow. Well, I don't think they failed.
I think they probably thought if you get to that, I mean, you're a mess anyway, right?
Well, and the reason I think that it was a relevant question to them, because they were a relevant, I want to make sure I said that correctly, question to them, is because they were watching that exact same process happening in France.
Right.
France had elected to go the path of the Enlightenment and it attempted to destroy monarchy by the fact of we would establish human reason on that monarchy. And what they found was they descended into chaos almost immediately and into the reign of terror and into, off with their heads and blood running in the streets. And it's been a mess from the start. The godless equation was what the framers were rejecting. And they were keenly aware that humans could very easily fall into that. And that replacing a monarchy with simply a humanist platform would create the same kind of terror that a bad monarch could create. And so they were aware. They were very aware. And I think they were deeply concerned. In fact, when you study the life of Washington, and he claims that he served his country for over 45 years, which means he began believing he was serving his country when he was 17 years old. That's how his entire life was consumed in service. And he was concerned, even through the period of commanding general in the War for Independence, he was concerned about our national character. Would Americans come to the point of understanding the importance of character, the importance of conscience being manifest in action in a consistent pattern of self-governance? And when you read his letters from the field in 1783, after the war was won, and his circular letter to the states, he specifically talks about the fact that he believes that we now have reached the point of establishing a national character, that we now have earned the right to say we should be able to govern ourselves. So they were keenly aware of the urgency of getting our heads straight. Now, one more thing about self-evident truth. What does that mean? It means that it is so plain, so obvious, that it's without contest. We hold these truths to be self-evident. Notice they're plural, right? And we talk about that we're endowed with certain inalienable rights, that among these, in other words, not all of our rights are announced in the Declaration of Independence, nor are all the self-evident truths we believe in, but these are the ones that are most important to connect us into a mindset that will give us the ability to be self-governed under law.
I love when you use the word compulsion.
Yeah.
Compulsion, the action or state of forcing or being forced to do something. Can I ask you? Look, I know I have spent my entire life focusing on being salt and light and doing so in love and in a way that enriches a relationship, doesn't, damage it. I have never been judge or jury, except I am guilty of being my own judge and jury, which is just as appalling to God. In being, a perfectionist or self-judging. But I don't see, I've lived through decades and I have been around certain cultures of Christianity that are very legalistic or very judgmental. But when you go by the definition of compulsion, what I've lived from the left sounds like compulsion to me. You will take this or else. You will not call this person that, or you will use this pronoun, or else we will destroy your life. When you think about it, I always say in the name of tolerance, the left is now the most intolerant. I hate to point a finger at anybody, but if we're going to have a conversation about this guy who happens to be a Republican, happens to be a conservative, happens to have a Christian worldview, now he's a Christian nationalist, and then the ones that are truly compelling people and the compulsion to change or else, it's really kind of coming from the other side. There's this wicked game being played here, isn't there?
Well, and it's not new. G.K. Chesterton called this out in 1922 when he said that basically when you follow the process of evolution, you end up in the process of eugenics. In other words, when you go to a godless equation, it was another way of Chesterton saying lose God, lose man. Mm-hmm. And this has been it's the same thing that Chief Rabbi Jonathan Sacks said, the late Lord Jonathan Sacks, who was a member of the House of Lords and the Chief Rabbi of England, when we talked about this in the books that he wrote, and he concurred that you can sum it all up in the words, lose God, lose man. When you lose the reality of man as being created and having innate worth and inalienable rights, then you end up in a situation where if you lose God, then all of that stuff about what is man disappears as well. And then you have to reinvent man. And we do that very poorly.
Yeah.
I mean, we love trying, but we really mess it up because it always ends up being the cool kids picking on the non-cool kids.
Do I look embarrassed to you right now?
No.
I thought that quote was you, and turns out it's Chesterton. I thought you said lose God, lose man.
Oh, no, I did say, no, you're not right. It was, no, Rabbi Sacks gave me full credit for it.
Okay.
We said it. But what he said was that if you start with evolution, you end up in eugenics. In other words, when you start with a godless equation, you're going to end up killing people. I mean, it's just, that's it. Yeah.
When you subscribe to 1850 Main Street, you're the first to find out what's happening next with new guests, publications, and events. And when you spread the word about 1850 Main Street, you're helping others find real answers to the real questions facing America right now. To learn more, visit 1850mainstreet.com. And please, tell a friend.
So what's Christian nationalism got to do with the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson? Well, this is the latest attempt to brand, it's a word I don't like to use very often, but to brand and to label the new Speaker and anyone who agrees with him. And basically that is and it doesn't matter whether we're talking about the Christian community as far as Protestants or Catholics, or the Judeo part of the Judeo-Christian community in regards to people who still hold to Judaism. Mm-hmm. These people are all branded as dangerous because they don't adhere to a secularist, modernist world. Now, the tortured reality of it is they've tried to convince us that it was the framers who wanted no religion in government. Well, all you have to do is read the Declaration of Independence and realize that's a completely fraudulent statement, which is why they don't want you to read the Declaration of Independence. And so they can't win that argument. So all they can do is throw labels on people. So it's their attempt to label the Speaker.
Oh, and they'll find one or two real extreme bad examples.
Yeah, and they're out there for sure.
To kind of, and then everybody has to, well, I don't want to be a Christian nationalist. I don't want to be, and the next thing you know, I don't want to be a nation under God. That's how it goes.
And I was in some discussions with some reporters recently, and we were kind of near this subject, and I was tempted to say to them something that my good friend Rob Allgate from the American Policy Roundtable will say when we get in these conversations, and they say, we want you people, it's always you people to just stop with your religion and politics. And Rob will stop and say, okay, that's a great idea. Oh, by the way, I'm taller than you because Rob's a tall guy. I'm younger and I'm stronger than you. And of course. So give me your wallet or give me your purse. And they said, what are you talking about? Have you lost your mind? I want your purse. I want your iWatch. I want it all. And I want it now. Give me your car keys. You're walking home. I want it. And they say, okay, what's the point? The point is, where do you get off of getting rid of religion when it says thou shalt not steal?
Exactly. Where do they think this stuff came from?
Exactly. The people who say you can't legislate morality, okay, give me your wallet. Of course, every single law we have is based upon ethics, worldview, and morality.
Because I cracked a joke the other day when you were talking about gambling, and you didn't get it, and I don't think anybody would get it, but I said, oh, so can I steal your money and gamble? Because that's what ends up happening in the long run. We all end up paying for it. I'll never gamble. They'll legalize gambling. Then the crime goes up. I got to pay more in taxes to fight the crime. I got to offset the loss of jobs with higher property taxes. I mean, but they don't get how it all is very, very real and comes home to you in like two loops.
Well, I can tell you, Michael, we could dismiss all this as one more attempt for the left to label the right, intimidate the right, and avoid the real conversation about worldview and how morality does matter and how we treat one another. A couple of quick points. One is, the other day I was thinking about this. Could you find in civil government, in the history of the human experience, any better formula upon which to base your laws, then do unto others as you would have them do unto you. How could you ask for a fair scale of balance on justice? Well, that is a uniquely Judeo-Christian thought. Now, there are other religions that have also said something close to that, but in the American experience, this is where we drew it from, the Judeo-Christian tradition. And it's worked out pretty darn well for us, especially in our judicial system.
In fact, when you look at our darkest hours, it's when we turn our back on that.
Exactly. Now, has it been perfect? No, but it's been our fault for not adhering to it, not the fault of the principle. All right. Secondly, for years, people would say to me, well, America was founded as a Christian nation. And I would say to them, your point is taken, but it's not well taken in this sense. When you say America was founded as a Christian nation, what the modern secularist hears
Christian
is
nationalism.
something completely different from what you mean. And so the word Christian was designed to modify human beings, not bookstores or record labels or even nations. The word Christian is designed to modify human beings. But even that, while that's an interesting point of it, it's nowhere near as artful as something that our dear friend, Dr. William B. Allen, said in a lecture recently in Nashville, Tennessee. I had a chance to, it was actually a dialogue. We had a chance to talk together in front of a large crowd of people. And we got into this conversation and he said, look, let me explain something to you. The American experience is such that there is no other nation in the world founded upon the human potential for conscience. In other words, this is a deliberative form of government. You have to make decisions to be a part of self-government. And what religion in the history of humankind actually confesses from the start that human beings are endowed by God, breathed into by God, that divine spark Washington called conscience. The Judeo-Christian ethic is such that it recognizes the human capacity for everyone to have conscience from birth. You don't earn it. It's not a part of nobility. It's not something that you get through caste systems. Every single person has that capacity. That's a uniquely Judeo-Christian thought, but it goes a step farther. In the reality of redemption in the New Testament, that conscience is renewed, and so that the capacity to do the right thing because of someone being born again gives you all the more merit for self-government. That's why Adam said that this nation was designed for a moral people, a people who understand conscience and seek to function in that realm of understanding. And he said, that's why, and this is the artful part that he said, most artful part. He said, that's why America is a Christian nation, even if there was never a Christian who ever lived here. The idea comes from the Judeo-Christian revelation. And it is remarkably enhanced in the experience of the redemption of Christ. Now, those who don't like that will say, there, I told you they were Christian nationalists. And before we go, we have to make sure that just in case someone missed it, I got to hear something the other day that made me very, very happy. I was driving through Nashville, turned on the radio, and there you were. Not only do you have a new radio show in Nashville, you have a new radio show in Tulsa, you have a new radio show in Oklahoma City, and a new radio show that we have a pretty good inkling that is going to be in a number of other cities as well before this year is done. Your morning show with Michael DelGiorno. So let me be among the first people to say congratulations.
Well, come on. I wouldn't be here without you. We went through this whole season and we watched God open doors and we didn't know where he was leading. And he led, as he always did, as one who goes before and with and after. I have a new home with iHeart, and I want you to know, I said this the other day to make a promo. I love my new home. Who doesn't get a new home and want friends to come over and see it? Or,
nice.
And share in the joy and that kind of a thing. I love everyone that I'm with. They are very supportive of me, and I couldn't give any more credit to where it only belongs, which is God. And I have said this from the very beginning. My job is to stay out of the way and stay dead and hopefully be a better me than I've ever been. But I think it's exciting for us to reach into new cities and meet new people. And I think it's a tricky time in culture. And we got to get beyond this, everybody hates everybody and everything's gloom and doom. No, there's reason for hope. Even in the midst of all of these not so wonderful circumstances, there is reason for hope. And there's certainly the importance of starting the day off right. So yes, I'll be on WLAC in Nashville from 5 to 8 a.m. Pray for me. 5 a.m. is usually when I'm going to sleep, because I know I'm going to bed and David's up at the table and he's got his Bible out and his laptop. That's when I'm going to bed. But 5 to 8 will be on The Patriot in Tulsa, Oklahoma, I think, and KTOK, News Radio 1000 in Oklahoma City. And I think there's many more markets to come as we approach the new year. A few more before the end of the year and then some more in the next year.
Well, what is exciting to me is now people that have enjoyed listening to you on the radio and people that enjoy listening to 1850 Main Street can also now recognize that when you tap into the iHeart app, you can find 1850, you can find excerpts from your morning show with Michael DelGiorno, you can find the stations that you're on every day, so people, regardless of their time zone or where they are geographically, can listen every morning. And I can tell you that I have a lot of friends, and we have a lot of people, staff around the American Policy Roundtable that I can't wait to reprogram their phones so that they can listen to you in the morning.
All right. So the number one thing I've been hearing is you're going to continue to do 1850. Yes, we felt led to do 1850. We're loving 1850. People are loving to listen to 1850. It's as important to me moving forward, and iHeart understands that, as this morning radio show. And by the way, in case people are wondering, they've been asking, I had 3 people ask me, I'm sure David will find some time to be on the radio show as well. Dun-dun, dun-dun, dun-dun. I'll just do the odd couple theme on the way out. That's what you've been praying for, right, David? More of me in your life. Dun-dun, dun-dun, dun-dun.
The conversations are just getting started. To get connected, check out 1850mainstreet.com. We don't data mine anyone or sell your information. Subscribe today so you don't miss a single conversation. We'll see you next time here at 1850 Main Street.